The Vrex Armada had ruled the outer spiral territories for over 300 years. Their dark red warships moved through space like predators, and every species that saw them knew to run or surrender. Commander Thelkaris stood on the command deck of the massive flagship called Eternal Claw. He was tall, with 4 arms and a body covered in thick armor like skin. His black eyes watched the holographic screens floating in front of him. 16 different alien fleets were gathering in one spot. All of them had come for the same reason. They were going to attack a human colony world called New Terra. The Galactic Council, which was supposed to keep peace in the galaxy, had actually given permission for this attack. The humans were new to space travel. They had only been exploring the stars for about 50 years. But they refused to follow the old rules. They refused to bow down to the powerful empires that had been around for thousands of years. That made the old empires angry. Very angry. Thelkaris looked at the numbers on his screen. 800 warships total. The human colony below had maybe 20 small defense platforms orbiting the planet. Down on the surface were 3 million human colonists. Farmers, scientists, families with children. They had no idea what was coming. The human military fleet was still days away, racing to get here after receiving distress calls. By the time they arrived, New Terra would be burning. The colonists would be dead or enslaved. And the humans would finally learn their place in the galaxy. Thelkaris allowed himself a small smile. His crew members made clicking sounds with their mandibles. In their language, it meant they were happy. Excited for battle. The Vrex loved war. They were good at it. "Commander, all fleets report ready," said his second officer. "Shall we begin the bombardment?" Thelkaris was about to give the order. His mouth opened. But then something impossible happened. The sensors started screaming. Not alarm sounds but confused beeping noises. The computer systems couldn't understand what they were seeing. Space itself was tearing open. Massive distortions in reality appeared right in front of the Allied fleets. "What is that?" Thelkaris demanded. "Sir, it's a fleet coming out of faster-than-light travel," the sensor officer said. His voice was shaking. "But that's impossible. The human fleet was supposed to be days away. Our scouts confirmed it." "How many ships?" Thelkaris asked. 43, sir." The command deck erupted in laughter. Even Thelkaris couldn't help but make the clicking sound of amusement. 43 ships? Against 800? The humans must be insane. Or maybe they were coming to surrender and beg for mercy. The human ships emerged from the tears in space. They were smaller than most of the alien warships. Sleek and gray, with no decorations or intimidating designs. They looked almost boring. Plain. Simple. They formed up in a perfect diamond formation and just stopped. They didn't charge forward. They didn't spread out to flank. They just held position between the Allied fleets and New Terra. "Are they challenging us?" asked the weapons officer. 43 against 800? "Scan their ships," Thelkaris ordered. "Find their weak points. Prepare to." Every screen on every ship in all 16 fleets suddenly changed. Thelkaris jumped back from his holographic display. It had been showing tactical information a second ago. Now it showed only 2 words in bright white letters. "Leave. Now." The message was in his language. Perfect translation. But when he looked at his crew, they were all staring at their own screens with confused expressions. Each one was seeing the message in their own language. "Sir, we didn't receive any transmission," the communications officer said. "No radio signal. No laser communication. No quantum entanglement message. Nothing." The message just appeared. Thelkaris felt something cold move down his spine. He looked at the human fleet on his tactical screen. They hadn't moved. They hadn't powered up weapons. They hadn't sent any message that his systems could detect. So how did those words appear on every screen in his fleet? In every fleet here? "Commander, the humans are," his weapons officer started to say. But he never finished his sentence. The lead human warship fired something. It wasn't a missile. It wasn't a laser beam or plasma bolt. It was something else. Something that made the sensors scream again. A perfect sphere of absolutely nothing appeared in space. It was like someone had taken an eraser and just rubbed out part of reality. Inside that sphere had been 73 Vrex warships. Heavy battlecruisers. Destroyers. Carriers. Now there was just empty black space. No explosion. No debris field. No escape pods. No energy signature. The ships hadn't been destroyed. They had simply stopped existing. Admiral Jack Morrison stood perfectly still on the bridge of the UHNS Vindication. He was 52 years old with gray hair cut military short and eyes that had seen too many battles. His hands gripped the armrests of his command chair so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. The quantum erasure torpedoes had worked exactly as the scientists promised. But watching 73 ships vanish from existence made his stomach turn. Around him, his bridge crew worked in complete silence. No one spoke. No one made unnecessary sounds. Lieutenant Rebecca Hayes sat at the weapons station, her finger hovering over the firing controls. She was 28, brilliant, and she looked like she might throw up. Commander Tom Bradley stood at tactical, watching the enemy fleet formations on his screens. His jaw was clenched tight. This was not how Morrison wanted to fight. But the enemy had given them no choice. "Sir, multiple Thorian carrier groups are moving to flank us," Bradley reported quietly. "They're launching fighters. Looks like 3,000 small craft. Maybe more." Morrison watched the tactical display. Thousands of tiny dots separated from the larger enemy ships. They were coming fast, screaming across space toward the human fleet. He could imagine the pilots inside. They were probably young. Probably excited for battle. Probably thought they were heroes. They had no idea what was about to happen to them. "Maintain formation," Morrison said. His voice was calm and flat. "Let them come." Across the Thorian fighter squadrons, pilots shouted war cries over their communication channels. They had trained their whole lives for this. To fight for the glory of the Thorian Empire. To destroy their enemies. They activated their weapons systems. Charged their plasma cannons. Achieved target lock on the human ships. Morrison waited until the fighters were committed. Until they had crossed the point of no return. Then he looked at Lieutenant Hayes. She understood. Her finger pressed the firing button. Another human destroyer fired a quantum erasure torpedo. The weapon traveled faster than light itself. It reached the center of the Thorian fighter formation and activated. Reality deleted itself in another perfect sphere. 400 fighters simply stopped existing. Two massive Thorian carriers that had been behind them also vanished. Gone. Erased. Like someone had hit the delete button on a computer. The remaining Thorian fighters broke formation immediately. Pilots screamed over their radios. They weren't war cries anymore. They were sounds of pure terror. The fighters scattered in every direction, racing back toward their mother ships. Some of them were crying. Some were praying to their gods. Some just fled in blind panic. Morrison watched them run. He did not order his ships to fire again. On board the Eternal Claw, Commander Thalkaris was trying to understand what he was seeing. His tactical officer, a younger Vrex named Kelthus, was frantically running scans of the human weapons. "Commander, I've analyzed the attack pattern," Kelthus said. His voice was shaking. "The humans, they're not firing randomly. They're targeting based on aggressive action." "Explain," Thalkaris demanded. "Every ship that armed weapons was erased first. Every fighter that achieved target lock. But look, sir." Kelthus pointed at his screen. "The Krellian Third Fleet powered down their weapons 30 seconds ago. They're beginning retreat maneuvers. The humans are tracking them but not firing." Thalkaris felt his blood run cold. The humans were testing them. Offering them a chance to survive. The message was brutally simple: power down and leave or die. 5 more alien fleets began shutting down their weapon systems. Their commanders had seen the same pattern. They knew what it meant. One by one, they turned their ships around and started moving away from New Terra. The human fleet tracked each ship but held their fire. They were keeping their word. Surrender meant survival. But 3 fleets remained in attack formation. The Vrex, the remaining Thorian ships, and the mysterious Shadowkin, whose vessels flickered in and out of normal space like ghosts. The Shadowkin had been silent this entire time. They were the galaxy's most feared assassins. Their technology allowed them to exist in multiple dimensions at once. They could phase through shields, through armor, through anything. No weapon in the known galaxy could hit a target that existed in 17 different quantum states simultaneously. The Shadow King commander made his decision. If these humans thought their weapons were unstoppable, they would learn otherwise. The Shadowkin fleet activated their quantum phase drives. Their ships began flickering, existing in multiple realities at the same time. Then they fired. Phase disruption cannons were designed to tear ships apart from the inside. The beams passed through normal space and struck the human destroyer Newton's Revenge. The ship exploded in a massive fireball. Debris scattered across space. The Shadowkin had drawn first blood. Admiral Morrison watched his people die on the screens. He watched the life support readings flatline. Watched the hull breach alerts. Watched 347 names appear on his casualty list. His face showed nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just cold calculation. He opened a communication channel. For the first time since arriving, the human fleet transmitted a message. Morrison's voice went out across every frequency in every language to every ship present. 5 words. Come. Emotionless. Absolutely terrifying. You have 5 seconds. The Shadowkin fleet shimmered in space like mirages in a desert. Their ships were dark purple and black, covered in strange symbols that hurt to look at for too long. They existed in 17 different quantum dimensions at the same time. This meant that sensors could barely track them. Weapons could not lock onto them. They were ghosts that could kill but could not be killed. Or so they believed. The Shadowkin commander watched the burning wreckage of the human destroyer Newton's Revenge. He felt satisfaction. These humans thought they were powerful. They thought their deletion weapons made them invincible. But the Shadowkin had just proven that humans could bleed. Could die. Just like everyone else. 3 more Shadowkin vessels achieved target lock on human ships. The Cincinnati. The Prague. The Tokyo. The phase disruption cannons began charging for another volley. In 15 seconds, 3 more human ships would explode from the inside out. Admiral Morrison counted down in his head. 5, 4, 3. The Shadowkin were still charging their weapons. 2, 1. Lieutenant Hayes, Morrison said quietly. Fire. Rebecca Hayes had been waiting for the order. Her hand moved across her console. Not one quantum erasure torpedo this time. 7 of them. All targeted at the Shadowkin fleet. The weapons launched. They moved faster than light. They reached the flickering Shadowkin ships in less than a second. Then they did something that made every scientist in the alien fleets question everything they knew about physics. The quantum erasure torpedoes did not just delete things from normal space. They deleted things from every dimension simultaneously. Every quantum state. Every parallel reality. Every possible timeline. The Shadowkin ships existed in 17 dimensions at once. The erasure weapons found them in all 17. And deleted them from all 17 at the exact same moment. 300 Shadowkin vessels simply ceased to exist. Not just in normal space. Everywhere. In every dimension. In every reality. The Shadowkin race's most advanced technology, developed over 10,000 years, meant absolutely nothing against a weapon that could reach across dimensions. Commander Thelkaris watched his sensors in disbelief. The Shadowkin were supposed to be untouchable. Unkillable. They were legends. Stories that parents told to scare children. And the humans had just erased their entire fleet without even trying hard. Impossible, whispered Kel'Thuzh beside him. The readings show they were deleted from multiple dimensional planes. That kind of technology shouldn't exist. It violates the Koresh principles. It breaks the dimensional stability laws. It's not possible. But it had happened. Right in front of their eyes. Thelkaris looked at his fleet status. He had 237 Vrex warships remaining. The pride of his race. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds. He looked at the human fleet. 42 ships now, after they lost the Newton's Revenge. Still outnumbered more than 5 to 1. But numbers did not matter anymore. The humans had weapons that could delete reality itself. Weapons that could reach into other dimensions. Weapons that killed without leaving bodies or wreckage or anything at all. For 300 years, the Vrex had never retreated from battle. Never. It was against everything they believed in. A Vrex warrior fought until victory or death. Those were the only 2 options. Retreat was shame. Retreat was dishonor. Retreat meant you were weak. But dishonor did not matter if you were dead. All Vrex forces, Thelkaris said slowly. Each word felt like swallowing poison. Full retreat. Maximum speed. Abandon formation. Jump to faster-than-light travel as soon as possible. His bridge crew stared at him in shock. Some of them made angry clicking sounds. One of his officers stepped forward, mandibles spread wide in challenge. Commander, we cannot. Now. Thelkaris roared. That is an order. Jump to FTL immediately or I will have you shot for insubordination. The Vrex fleet turned and ran. The mighty armada that had dominated the outer spiral for 3 centuries fled like frightened children. Their engines burned at maximum power. They could not jump to faster-than-light speed until they were clear of the battle zone, and those minutes felt like hours. Every second they expected another erasure sphere to appear and delete them from existence. But the human fleet tracked them and did not fire. They let the Vrex run. Now only one alien fleet remained. The Thorian carriers. Admiral Kresh stood on his command bridge, frozen like a statue. His clawed hands gripped his command console. His people believed in honor above all else. To retreat was to bring shame upon his entire family line for generations. But his emperor was screaming through the communication channel, demanding that Kresh attack, ordering him to destroy the humans no matter the cost. The emperor was safe at home, thousands of light years away. Easy to demand sacrifice when you were not the one being sacrificed. Kresh looked at his crew. 80,000 Thorians serving on his ships. Young ones. Old veterans. Engineers and soldiers and medical staff. 80,000 lives that he was responsible for. Admiral Morrison's voice came across the channels again. Still calm. Still emotionless. Still absolutely terrifying. 3 seconds. Kresh made his choice. He slammed his fist down on the emergency retreat command. The Thorian fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. Gone in flashes of blue light. The Warzone was empty except for 42 human ships and the debris field of the Newton's Revenge floating in the darkness. The bridge of the UHNS Vindication was completely silent. Admiral Jack Morrison sat in his command chair and stared at the main view screen. It showed the wreckage of the Newton's Revenge slowly tumbling through space. Pieces of hull, broken equipment, and 347 bodies floating in the void. Lieutenant Rebecca Hayes had her head down at her console. Her shoulders were shaking slightly. She had pressed the button that erased the Shadowkin fleet. 300 ships. Thousands of beings. Gone forever because she moved her finger. Commander Tom Bradley walked over to Morrison and spoke quietly. "Sir, rescue operations have recovered all the bodies from the Newton's Revenge. No survivors. Captain Williams and his entire crew are gone." Morrison nodded slowly. He had known David Williams for 20 years. They had gone through the Naval Academy together. Williams had 3 children back on Earth. 2 daughters and a son. Morrison would have to write letters to them. He would have to explain why their father was never coming home. "Begin establishing orbital defense platforms around New Terra," Morrison said. "I want this planet locked down tight. Nothing gets through." "Yes, sir," Bradley replied. "Sir, the Galactic Council is trying to contact us. They've been sending messages for the last 10 minutes. They want to talk. They want to negotiate." "Ignore them," Morrison said. "I'm not done talking yet." He stood up from his chair and walked to the communication station. Captain Lisa Crawford sat there. She was 35 years old with red hair tied back in a tight bun. She had been monitoring all the enemy communications during the battle. She knew every language in the galaxy. "Captain Crawford, I need you to send a message," Morrison said. "I want it transmitted on every frequency. Every relay station. Every diplomatic channel. Every emergency broadcast system. I want every being in this galaxy to receive it." "Yes, sir," Crawford said. "What's the message?" Morrison stood there for a moment. He thought about the 3 million colonists down on New Terra who had almost died today. He thought about the Newton's Revenge and the crew that had died. He thought about the erasure weapons and how they violated every law of physics and ethics. He thought about what humanity had become. Then he began to speak. Crawford typed as he talked, translating his words into 6,000 different languages simultaneously. "To the Galactic Council and all member species of the known galaxy. This is Admiral Jack Morrison of the United Human Naval Service. You came here today to commit genocide. You brought 800 warships to attack a colony of 3 million civilians. Farmers, teachers, children. You came to murder them because we refused to bow down to your authority." Morrison paused. He looked at the wreckage on the screen. "We responded with weapons that you cannot defend against. We possess quantum erasure torpedoes that delete matter from existence across all dimensions. We possess targeting systems that track you no matter where you hide. We possess the technology to make your fleets completely irrelevant. Your shields mean nothing. Your armor means nothing. Your weapons mean nothing. We can erase you from reality before you even fire a shot." Captain Crawford kept typing. Her fingers moved fast across the keyboard. The message was being transmitted across the entire galaxy in real time. "But I want you to understand something important," Morrison continued. "We did not pursue your retreating fleets. We could have. We could have erased every single ship that ran away today. We could have tracked you back to your homeworlds and deleted your planets. But we did not. We gave every commander the choice to survive. And we honored those who chose to retreat." Morrison walked closer to the view screen. His reflection stared back at him from the dark glass. "Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to conquer your worlds. We do not want to build an empire. We want only one thing. To be left alone. To live in peace. To raise our families and explore the stars without fear of attack." His voice grew harder. Colder. But we will never seek peace from a position of weakness. Never again. Any fleet that approaches human space with armed weapons will be erased. Immediately. Without warning. Without negotiation. Without a single word. We will not hail you. We will not ask your intentions. We will not give you time to explain. You will simply cease to exist. Crawford finished typing and looked up at him. Morrison nodded. Leave us in peace and we will leave you in peace. Force our hand and we will erase you from existence without a single word leaving our mouths. Your choice. Choose wisely. End message. Crawford hit the transmission button. The message shot out across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. It bounced from relay to relay. Station to station. Within an hour, every government in known space would receive it. Within a day, every civilian would hear it on their news broadcasts. Morrison sat back down in his command chair. He felt tired. Like he had aged 10 years in the last hour. Sir, the Galactic Council is responding, Bradley said. They're calling for an emergency session. They want to discuss terms. Tell them there are no terms, Morrison replied. Tell them we've said everything we need to say. The weapon spoke. The message is clear. Commander Thelkaris sat alone in his private quarters aboard the Eternal Claw. His fleet was racing through faster-than-light travel back toward Vrex space. It would take 3 weeks to get home. 3 weeks to think about what had happened. 3 weeks to process the shame of retreat. On his desk screen, Admiral Morrison's message played again. Thelkaris had watched it 17 times already. He was trying to understand these humans. Trying to figure out what kind of species could create such terrible weapons and then choose not to use them. The humans could have killed every retreating ship. Could have followed them home. Could have deleted the Vrex homeworld from existence. But they did not. They had given a choice. Power down and leave or die. Simple. Clear. Brutal. And honest. Thelkaris respected honesty. In 300 years of Vrex conquest, they had always lied to their enemies. Promised mercy and then showed none. Offered surrender terms and then killed the survivors anyway. But the humans had done exactly what they said they would do. Nothing more. Nothing less. That restraint was somehow more frightening than the weapons themselves. His door chimed. Enter, Thelkaris said. Kelva stepped inside. The younger officer looked exhausted. Commander, I've been analyzing the human weapons technology. I cannot figure out how it works. It violates every known law of physics. It should not be possible. And yet it is, Thelkaris said quietly. The universe does not care what we think is possible. What will happen when we return home? Kelvas asked. The High Command will demand answers. They will want to know why we retreated. Thelkaris stood up and walked to his window. Outside, stars streaked past in lines of light. I will tell them the truth. We faced an enemy we could not defeat. An enemy that gave us the choice to live. And I chose life over pointless death. If they wish to execute me for that choice, so be it. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council chambers were in chaos. Representatives from 200 species shouted and argued. Some demanded immediate retaliation against humanity. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to pretend the whole thing never happened. The ambassador from the Wisdom Collective finally stood up. He was old, ancient even by his species' long-lived standards. His skin was pale blue and covered in patterns that glowed softly. When he spoke, everyone fell silent. The Wisdom Collective rarely spoke, but when they did, people listened. I have reviewed the human transmission, he said. His voice was calm and soft. I have analyzed their actions during the battle. I have calculated probable outcomes of various responses. And I have reached a conclusion. He paused and looked around the chamber. The humans are offering us a gift. They are offering us survival. They demonstrated overwhelming superiority and then showed restraint. They could have destroyed us all. But they chose not to. They are telling us the rules of engagement. Follow the rules and live. Break the rules and die. It is remarkably simple. Simple, shouted the Thorian representative. They humiliated us. They made us run like cowards. They let you run, the Wisdom Collective ambassador corrected. They could have erased your fleet while it retreated. They did not. That was mercy. Uncomfortable mercy, perhaps. Humiliating mercy. But mercy nonetheless. He turned to address the entire chamber. I propose immediate recognition of human sovereignty over all their claimed territories. I propose we establish a buffer zone around human space that no military vessels may enter. I propose we accept their terms exactly as stated. All in favor? The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, hands and appendages rose into the air. 1 by 1. 2 by 2. Within 5 minutes, the vote was unanimous. The humans had won without conquering, had achieved peace without negotiation, had secured their borders without firing a second shot. Down on the surface of New Terra, Colonel Mike Patterson stood outside his family's habdome. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. His daughter Emma ran up to him. She was 7 years old with blonde hair and pigtails. "Daddy, are the bad ships gone?" she asked. Patterson looked up at the sky. He could not see the human fleet from here, but he knew they were up there. 42 ships maintaining silent watch over the planet. Guardian angels with terrible weapons. "Yes, sweetheart," he said. "They're gone." "Did our ships talk to them?" Emma asked. "Did they tell them to go away?" Patterson thought about Admiral Morrison's message. About the quantum erasure torpedoes. About 73 Vrex ships simply ceasing to exist. About 300 Shadowkin vessels deleted from 17 dimensions simultaneously. "No, honey," he said quietly. "They didn't need to talk." Emma thought about that for a moment. Because the bad guys understood without words? Patterson picked up his daughter and held her close. Something like that. Sometimes actions speak louder than words. "Mrs. Chin at school says violence is never the answer," Emma said. "Mrs. Chin is right," Patterson replied. "But sometimes violence is the question. And the answer is no." Emma looked confused. Patterson smiled sadly. She was too young to understand. Too young to know that sometimes peace only came after showing strength. That sometimes mercy required the capacity for terrible destruction. That sometimes the only way to protect innocent lives was to prove you could take them. The human fleet remained in orbit around New Terra. Silent. Watching. Waiting. They sent no more messages. Made no more broadcasts. Did not communicate with anyone. They did not need to. The message had been delivered. The weapon had spoken. The galaxy had learned to listen. Admiral Morrison stood on his bridge and watched the stars. He thought about Captain David Williams and the crew of the Newton's Revenge. He thought about the 347 names on his casualty list. He thought about the thousands of alien beings his weapons had erased from existence. He wondered if history would remember him as a hero or a monster. He wondered if there was any difference. But mostly he thought about the 3 million colonists sleeping safely in their homes below. Families who would wake up tomorrow. Children who would go to school. Farmers who would tend their crops. All alive because 42 ships had stood in the darkness and said no. That was enough. It had to be enough. The human fleet maintained their silent vigil. The galaxy learned a new truth. Humanity had asked nicely to be left alone. When that did not work, they had stopped asking. And the universe listened.